tragedy of the Library of Alexandria was not that ancient knowledge burned. It was that something far more dangerous disappeared with it. Civilizations lose books all the time. What they rarely lose is the machinery that keeps knowledge from decaying. Alexandria built that machinery more than 2,000 years ago. And when it collapsed, the damage was not immediate destruction, but something slower. Knowledge did not vanish. It began to drift. The Library of Alexandria did not contain lost magic, forbidden science, or secret technologies. What was lost was something more consequential, a system for turning scattered knowledge into cumulative power. Founded in the early 3rd century BCE under the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt, the library was not simply a building filled with scrolls. It was part of a larger research institution known as the Museion, modeled loosely on a state-funded academy. Its purpose was explicit and unprecedented: to collect, organize, verify, and reproduce all written knowledge worth preserving, not locally, not culturally, universally. This ambition matters because it defines what was actually at stake. Ancient texts were fragile, papyrus decayed, copies drifted, errors accumulated silently. Knowledge survived not by truth, but by repetition. What Alexandria introduced was an institutional correction to that problem. Texts were copied systematically. Multiple versions were compared. Errors were identified. Originals were reconstructed through comparison. Scholars argued publicly about accuracy, not meaning. This was not storytelling. It was quality control. The famous stories about the library's size, hundreds of thousands of scrolls, are less important than how those scrolls were treated. Ships arriving in Alexandria were searched. Books were seized, copied, and only the copies were returned. The originals were kept. This was not cultural theft. It was an early recognition that information has asymmetric value. Possession matters more than access. The scholars working there were not mystics. They were technicians of knowledge. Euclid systematized geometry. Eratosthenes calculated the Earth's circumference with remarkable accuracy using shadows and distance. Hipparchus developed early trigonometry and star catalogs. These achievements were not isolated genius. They were products of an environment where previous work was accessible, comparable, and disputable. That is the core loss. Not specific text, but the infrastructure that allowed progress to compound. When the library declined, and it declined slowly through neglect, political instability, and repeated damage rather than a single dramatic fire, the system collapsed. Scrolls can burn. Methods cannot, unless they are embodied in institutions. Alexandria's methods were non-portable. They depended on state funding, centralized authority, and long-term stability. When those disappeared, the process reverted to fragmentation. This is why asking which books were lost misses the point. Some text likely survived elsewhere. Others were probably redundant. What did not survive was the habit of systematic preservation and correction at scale. Knowledge returned to being local, fragile, and dependent on tradition rather than verification. The consequence was not immediate ignorance, it was stagnation. Without centralized comparison, the errors persisted. Without standardized copies, debates became theological rather than technical. Without institutional continuity, learning reset with each generation. The paradox of the Library of Alexandria is that it did not fail because it was wrong. It failed because it was too advanced for its environment. Its motto required sustained political will, economic surplus, and respect for intellectual labor detached from immediate utility. Those conditions are rare. When they vanish, systems like Alexandria are the first to go. What we lost was not answers. We lost continuity. That loss still echoes. Modern knowledge depends on databases, standards, archives, and institutions that quietly do the same work. Alexandria once did preservation, comparison, correction. When those systems weaken through defunding, politicization, or neglect, knowledge does not disappear overnight. It degrades. Errors accumulate. Consensus fractures. The Library of Alexandria reminds us that civilization does not advance by discovering truth once, but by building systems that prevent those truths from being forgotten, distorted, or lost between generations. When that system burns, ignorance does not rush in. It seeps.